What is the L.A.S.E.R test for determining where to invest money? And I'm talking about serious cash. This is money that you don't want to jeopardize or lose. Well, my favorite vehicle, as you're going to learn, is a properly structured, max-funded, indexed universal life insurance contract. If it's structured correctly and funded properly, it is deemed a L.A.S.E.R fund, and it passes the liquidity, safety, rate of return tests, and tax advantage test with flying colors. Hence, it is deemed a L.A.S.E.R fund, liquid asset safely earning returns. Get ready. I'm going to explain why and prove it to you. So I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and a retirement planning specialist now for 5 decades, helping thousands of Americans prepare for a comfortable retirement or places to put their money for long-term goals, whether it's for college funding or working capital for business or real estate management or estate planning. My favorite vehicle, without question, is a property structured max-funded IUL. And if it's structured correctly, it is deemed a L.A.S.E.R fund. And at the end of this episode, I'll gift you a free copy of my most recent best-selling book, this 300-page book, The L.A.S.E.R Fund, which is actually 2 books in one. This is the left brain side. This is the right brain side or book, okay? Now, the L.A.S.E.R test is something I created years ago because the key elements of a prudent investment, okay, in order of priority are number 1, liquidity, the ability to access your money when you need it. Number 2 is safety, not only of the institution, but safety of your principal. The money you set aside, you don't want to lose that. But I go one step further. Any year that I make money, I want that money I made this year to become newly protected principal so that in future years, I do not lose the money I made in previous years. Most advisors have no clue how to do that. They invest your money in a volatile stock market, and people might make money for a few years, and then in 1 year, they'll lose it all, like 2008. They'll lose all the money they made the previous 4 or 5 years. That's unacceptable to me. You don't have to go through that. The next key element is rate of return. You want to earn a rate of return that historically is beaten or outpaced inflation. And you don't need pie-in-the-sky rates of return if the returns are tax-free. Because if I can earn a return of 10% tax-free, that is as good as a tax-deferred IRA or 401k earning 15%. Because 15% after tax in a 33% bracket is only netting you 10. I only have to earn 11 in a L.A.S.E.R fund to net 10. With money in an asset portfolio, IRAs and 401ks, yeah, I have to earn 15 or 16% after taxes and fees to net the same 10. And so many advisors, they give you advice based upon return. People want the rate of return first. They put this number 1, and then they do it at the sacrifice of having ability to access their money. IRAs and 401ks, that's not liquid. Well, you can access the money, but you're going to trigger tax and a 10% penalty. That doesn't pass the liquidity test, okay? And so these are the 4 pillars. They are the pillars of sound financial planning. They are on the front cover of my book. And they also represent that any investment that you put your money into, you can score on a scale of 1 to 10 based on liquidity, safety, rate of return, and tax benefits. And I'm going to prove to you here in just a moment that where most Americans have their money, you're only scoring at best maybe 18 or 20 out of a possible 40 points. A max-funded IUL, it scores 35 out of 40 at least, okay? And so years ago, when I released my first several books, I had this risk-return paradigm illustration in every book. And I listed 16 general categories of investments from highest risk, like commodities, down to lowest risk, maybe the equity in your house. And we always want the highest return at the least amount of risk. Well, let's apply the L.A.S.E.R test here. If we apply the liquidity test, how many of these do not pass liquidity? You can't access your money without triggering tax or penalties or whatever. This many fail. They don't pass the liquidity test, okay? Now let's go to the safety test. This many more don't pass the safety test. You can lose your principal that you put in there, okay? This many more do not pass the rate of return test. Well, obviously, you have to earn a rate of return greater than the inflation rate because you can't be rowing upstream at the rate of 3 miles an hour in a bank. When the current of inflation is coming down at 9, you're going backwards, okay? But if you're understanding how money works, you're your own banker, you have to earn a rate of return greater than the net cost of the funds. If you're borrowing money for real estate or for your business and you borrow money at 6% interest, but it's tax deductible and net cost of 4, you can't be earning 3% in a bank to come out ahead. You've got to be earning 8. 8 is double. It's 100% more than the 4. Now you're your own banker. You're making 100% more than the net cost of the funds. So we only have 3 possibilities after liquidity, safety, rate of return. Maybe a very small handful of mutual funds, and I mean very small. Maybe just a few annuities, but max funded insurance when it's max funded. Well, let's apply the fourth test, tax favored harvest. What do I mean? Well, a lot of investments are only tax deferred. Traditional IRAs or 401ks, you get a tax break on the seed money. Like if you're a farmer and you bought your seed in the springtime and you didn't have to pay tax on the price of the seed, but you plant it, you irrigate, you cultivate, and later in the fall, you harvest your crops and you sell your crops, and you have to pay tax on what you sell your harvest for. That's a traditional IRA or 401k. I'd rather just pay tax on the seed and enjoy the harvest without tax. That's way better, in fact, 50% better than traditional IRAs or 401ks. A Roth is a step in the right direction, but I've never owned an IRA or 401k, and I've never owned a Roth IRA or 401k. I never will, because a max-funded IUL knocks the socks off of Roths. And so there's only one that gives you a tax-favored harvest and performs with preciseness on the L.A.S.E.R test. So let's do this. When we talk about max-funded IUL, a L.A.S.E.R fund, the reason why it's called L.A.S.E.R is because when we apply the liquidity test, on a scale of 1 to 10, it scores at least an 8 out of 10. Most investments don't even score 4 or 5. When we talk about safety, it scores a 9 or even a 10 out of 10, because this is where banks and credit unions put 30 to 40% of their tier 1 assets for liquidity and safety is in insurance companies, okay? When we talk about rate of return, if you were using a L.A.S.E.R fund for short-term goals, such as 5 years down the road, maybe the rate of return would be 6 out of 10. But for any goals that are longer than that, it's usually at least an 8 out of 10 or higher. And so we have a 6 or an 8 out of 10. When it comes to tax advantages, nothing else, absolutely nothing else in the Internal Revenue Code allows you to accumulate your money tax-free under Section 72E of the code, and then access your money, including all the gain, the rest of your life, tax-free under Section 7702. And at the end of the day, when you die, anything left behind blossoms, increases in value, and transfers income tax-free. Roths don't do that. I've asked many CPAs and tax attorneys that I teach advanced continuing education to show me any financial vehicle in the Internal Revenue Code that does what max-funded IUL does, and they've yet to show me. So it scores a perfect 10 on tax advantages. Nothing else comes close. Now you add up those 4 numbers and you end up with a score of 35 out of 40. Most Americans have their money in IRAs or 401ks or mutual funds or annuities or anywhere they have it, it scores usually 18, 20, 22. Don't you want to raise your score to 35? Nothing is perfect, but this comes pretty doggone close. So that's why I recommend the L.A.S.E.R fund, and that's why it's called a L.A.S.E.R fund. So I would strongly recommend you learn why and how. Claim a copy of the L.A.S.E.R fund book. You click on the link below or go to laserfund.com and contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that. I require a little bit of skin in the game, though. But then I'll pay for the book. I will fire out a hard copy to you via priority mail. And when you're in there claiming your free copy, if you like to listen and learn or watch and learn, there's audio and video formats. You can schedule to attend a free educational webinar with no cost or obligation. We teach them regularly. But also you can schedule an appointment with a certified IUL professional. There are very few in America. And I certify them when they pass a 100-question proficiency exam, which is not an easy exam. Most financial advisors wouldn't even score 20% because they wouldn't even understand 80% of the questions, okay? And so there's no cost or obligation if you schedule an appointment to see how a laser fund may help you in your particular set of circumstances. So claim your free copy now, and I'll see you on the other side of your brighter future.